Today, we finally have one of the mob vote losers, the copper golem, added to the game. Additionally, 1.21.9 adds us a whole bunch of new features. So if we go into the copper section, you'll notice we have bars and we even have chains. Additionally, when we scroll down, we even get chests, lanterns, and even a torch, along with the copper golem statues and a whole set of tools. So without further ado, let's investigate what the Copper Age is all about. For our copper golems, they're very easy to make. You don't need to do any complex recipes. Here, we just have some copper blocks, and piece by piece, we can make 4 different variants. These are all, of course, copper golems at different oxidation states. And you can see they come with a copper chest. This can be crafted easily. But anyways, these guys are little sorters. However, they can petrify. We'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's say we have some items. I came back from my adventure. I have some gold, I have some diamonds, and I have some lapis. Now, when we wait, these guys will come over and sort this for us. So let's just grab a little bit, and let's say each chest is a different one. And then, over time, these guys will sort my inventory for me. And they move things from copper chest to normal chest. That's their whole deal. So they won't cause any mishaps like that. You can see they've correctly sorted it. They are not double stacking anything. So let's quickly speed it up and see what they do. Coming back to these cute little critters, you can see they have actually done their job remarkably efficiently. For the latter half of that clip, they were doing nothing. And everything is perfectly sorted. The exact amounts in the exact spots I wanted. Which means, hooray! You no longer need to spend your entire iron supply, build all the iron farms. Nah, just have a few of these guys running around. 3 of them were able to do that in approximately like 5-6 minutes. Of course, the 4th one here has had a little bit of a mishap. So here's the thing. These guys are cute and all, but eventually they will oxidize over. Of course, they're copper. These guys did not get affected by it because I used a little bit of honeycomb. You can actually scrape it off with an axe. So if I show up here, peel it off, and you can see he's back to aging. So we can stop that. Or we can bring these guys over, let them age, and what do you know? Now we have a statue. And we can oxidize it from there. By the way, you do not get the achievement if you wax those guys. That might be a bug. Then you can take it off, and then take it off in layers like this. And then finally, if you want them back, well, hooray, you have your copper golem again. Since these guys are non-stackable and create an entity, what you can do is use a name tag on them and then let them freeze over, and then you can hand it to someone to send a secret message or set up a gacha system, which means these guys actually have a lot of technical utility outside of just being a less useful storage unit. While this little guy here is a super useful storage system sorter, and of course he is a little bit outclassed by hoppers, but good luck setting that up, he is also completely vulnerable to damage, so we can actually take him out. And what do you know? We got some copper off him. It's not in your best interest to do it, but he doesn't have very much health and he will not retaliate. He is not a combat thing. That's for the iron golem. However, that copper is really useful. And when I mean really useful, I mean, yeah. So we finally have another tool set after all these years, including some horse armor. We can see here the horse armor is just, well, what do you expect it to be? It only has 4 armor points, which puts it precisely between leather and iron, as in, that's not going to save your horse. Although, when do horses ever get damaged anyways? But besides that, we have copper tools, and they're actually pretty effective. Although this is basically a stone sword, if we go in survival mode and start digging, we can see it's not that slow. In fact, I could really see myself using this when I go back into survival mode someday. And then we can even look at its tooltip. 190 durability. The thing is, it's your in-between tier for stone and iron. While iron has all these uses and stone just doesn't have an armor, copper is exactly what you want in between. Because it's super easy to get, its only real use is building. You aren't going to be crafting an iron sword and then you can't make your hopper, flint and steel, stuff like that. Well, your copper is just cheap. You can go down there, get a full set of armor off one vein, go back up, and if you lose it, no problem. It's not very enchantable. It's the lowest in the game besides maybe like leather or chainmail. But still, It's super cheap, and if you lose all your stuff, you can rebound very quickly with copper. Additionally, in super multiplayer settings where you have 10 players at once or something, 240 iron is not easy to come across. So you can actually save yourself a bit of time, get everyone copper instead as that in between, which makes it surprisingly handy. Yeah, it's not the best, but it certainly has its own uses. Right here, we have ourselves the new shelf block. And this is super interesting. It's effectively Mojang's answer to the vertical slab dilemma. And I'm someone who does not like vertical slabs, and I can tell you this. It's completely awesome for building and for redstone. So real quickly, let's look at our shelves. And we can see they come in all variants. They even have unique back textures. Like if we go over here to this display, we can see how the birch and the pale have different stuff. This means we can actually use them for a lot of interesting things. But back to the technical aspect. Their thing is that you can display items in them. So of course, we have the copper chest, I already talked about that. Remember, the golems will only go from copper to normal, which means if you use them normally, like the copper chest is your main chest, they aren't going to work. Then we have the lightning rod. It can now be oxidized and waxed. Then we have a little bit more stuff. My keyboard has a malfunction. We have the bars, and yes, this is new. And we can just look at all of this. We have the chains, we have the lanterns, and we have the torch. And of course, they're crafted exactly like their normal counterparts. And to compensate, that's why we have the copper nugget. So that's all pretty cool. The copper nugget is just an iron nugget, but reskinned. You can imagine how you get it. And now, here's the cool part about shelves. They are basically item frames like this, but if we connect them all together with some redstone blocks, notice how their texture has changed. Then, let's right click. Look, now I've swapped my hotbar with that, and then I can go up, swap it again. Let's pull out another hotbar. Do this. What do you know? We have a complete hotbar swapper, which means you can use this for a lot of interesting minigames. Additionally, you can see we have a few new dye textures. That's because all the dye textures, remember how purple, magenta, pink, lime, they all looked identical. And yeah, okay, but now they actually look like real dyes. They have their little mat, and then they have their shapes, and you can imagine how this is useful for colorblind players. I'm personally not colorblind, I'm hearing impaired in other ways, but still, we have all this, and well, it's interesting. We have new textures for all of them, so it should be easier to navigate with them. And about that building stuff, look at how we can use all this new stuff. We have these little floor moldings with the shelves, fancy walls, and then we can use our new torches. Well, I'm using soul torches, but the lanterns. The copper torches are a bit interesting because they're green, but they aren't as bright as the other torches. You can see it's not like a super cool blue like this, or we can get the redstone torch, which is completely awesome. This is a little bit of a desaturated green. It's not my favorite, but it definitely has its uses. Anyways, we have all this, which means building is mainly going to be affected by this update. We have a bunch of little things, but the shelves and the new copper stuff is really the main draw of this. With our main features out of the way, let's talk about some of our smaller stuff. So there's actually funny interaction between the copper golem and iron golem. I wasn't able to catch it on camera, but you can get a little poppy growing on here. If you happen to freeze or kill this guy, he will drop the poppy. And also, we can summon players. This is a mannequin, and not the one that climbs on walls and shoots projectiles. Of course, this can just be anyone. I made this one Gearsaw Studios. Of course, me. Yeah, why did I even make this Minecraft skin? But anyways, this can be anyone, which means you could straight up just start having Hermitcraft in your world. I'm not entirely sure what happened to Green Skin. It was just like that, trust me. But anyways, we can actually have mannequins all over like this, and you can have them wear different armor. You can even change, like, do they have their outer layers of their skin on? That sounds very bad out of context. Please don't do that. But anyways, you can give them items. You can have them wear an elytra. They can crouch. And if you're smart enough, you could probably give them AI as well, which is kind of scary, but also really cool. Imagine players running around like zombies and attacking you. Yeah, that sounds very dangerous. But still, we have some more stuff to cover. That stuff is Java Edition only. This is also Java only. Let's press F3 and F6. This is our new debug screen, and we can actually select what we want and what we don't want, like this is Burger King. So if we press F3, notice how much cleaner my screen is. Of course, only on the left. On the right, we can't do anything about that. That's technical stuff to make sure that Mojang can make bug reports. But with all this, I get the stuff I want without the stuff I don't want, which makes it a lot more readable for me. We have the client light completely separated for my building purposes. We have the noise router on top and the biome builder, so that way I can figure out what direction I'm going in survival. We have our local difficulty as a day counter or biome, things like that. But I don't need to know about things like the mob cap, or how many chunks are loaded, or how many sounds are playing usually. So in that case, I just removed them, and now I have a much cleaner experience. For our last interesting change that's, of course, more universal, we're on Java Edition still. Let's look around. We're in the end. I'm usually not here, but still. We have the end. It looks completely normal, and now it's pink. Over there, we have an end flash. This is part of Vibrant Visuals, which isn't here yet. They're doing all the reworking necessary for that, but still. In the distance, every 30 to 45 seconds, we'll get an end flash, along with a quiet, ominous noise. And of course, you could hear it because I vastly increased the game audio. Yay, better editing from me. But still, we have all this going on to make the end just a little bit more interesting. Even if we might not get an end update in the near future, I don't know what's the deal with that at this point. But still, we have end flashes, and well, we just have a little bit of something to do here. Regardless, this is 121.9, and it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe, it really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.